Hello everyone, I'm Morgan Hibbs with Linn County Farm Bureau Education Outreach Coordinator, and I'm here today at a beef farm near Mount Vernon with Tim Keegan. He is one of our board of directors, and I'm excited to have him show you a beef farm and how he raises cattle and the calves here on the pasture. So today this is a farm chat, and if you're new to farm chat is a virtual tour of some sort of agriculture or business or farm, and so it gives you a real world connection to the farm and bringing it straight into the classroom without leaving the classroom. And so we're happy to have you join. If you have any questions, you can write those in the comments below. We'd be happy to answer those as we go, and the link will be available to watch following the farm chat if you are unable to join us live. So please comment if you have any of those questions, and we look forward to hearing what Tim has to say. So I'm going to switch the camera around to him and give him the headset.
Is this wind going to be bad?
I have a windbreaker on there. All right, you're good.
Hello everybody. Like Morgan said, my name's Tim Keegan. We farm cow-calf, beef cow-calf operation, and also row crop operation outside Mount Vernon. Farm with my family, and this is a family operation that's been doing this for several generations, I guess. On the cow-calf side of the business, we run about 150 cows. They're all beef cows. These would be production that we're going to use for meat production. Genetic-wise, we use like a Simmental Angus cross. There's a lot of different breeds in the U.S. Probably Angus and Simmental are the most popular in the Midwest. And so we just use these based on their traits of either milk production, calving ease, how easy they can calve, how good the mothers they are, how fast they grow. So those are why we kind of pick the breeds that we do and manage things that way. Usually within our operation we calve around March 20th, March 15th, March 20th, and we'll start, ideally like to calve for about 2 months. Obviously we'd like that to be less, but usually at about 2 months or so. And what we do is, it's kind of an intense time as they first start coming. The pairs are all, or the cows to calve are all put in one area, and they're usually checked about every 2 to 3 hours, including through the night. And we check them as those new babies are born. We assist if they need to, and then within about 24 hours we process those calves. And by process I mean we bring them in. We use a four-wheeler and that has a little carrier on the back, and so we put the calf in there, and the mom follows us into what we call our calving barn, and then that's where we kind of keep them pinned up for usually about 2 days or so. Make sure that they're sucking, the calves are up moving, they're staying healthy, and that's where we process them. We give them an ear tag that matches their mom so we can identify them. We give them all their shots just like a newborn baby would get, and any supplements that they might need, and also I guess that'd be about it. We also have to give them an iron shot because the soil around here is really deficient in iron. So interesting fact, it all depends on the area you're at, but we've had calves that have died of mulberry heart disease because they were too low in iron. So we give them, the baby calves, an iron shot just like they do on baby pigs. So from there we load them up on a trailer and then take them to different holding yards or different areas to where when the grass finally gets green, usually around the end of May, then we can kick them out on pasture. And that's kind of the routine. Obviously the most time is spent during calving season, and then during the summer when like right now there's 55 some pair of calves out here. And this is kind of their summer routine. They lay by the creek and eat grass and live a happy life. And so during the summer, obviously we got to keep mineral in front of them, some supplements, and then also spend a lot of time just checking fences and making sure they're good cows and not run into the neighbors. So that does happen quite a bit. But yeah, during the summer, this is kind of how things go. And over the course of the summer, usually about the end of August or so, we'll put in a creep feed, and is a pelleted creep product that just the calf, we have special gates so just the calves can go in there and eat that, and that helps them kind of just like a any baby would, you have to wean them off milk into that creep. And until that time during the summer, the calves are just eating grass. They eat a lot of grass and they're on milk from mama's milk. So usually then we wean them, which means we separate them from their mom around the 1st of October, sometime in that time frame. And we'll put them in a feed yard to where we'll then feed them out until they're a market weight. And so as far as kind of the process for the cows after they get weaned, during the winter we usually put them on either some corn stalks. A lot of times if you're driving around the countryside during the winter, you might see cows out on a corn stalk field. They're utilizing some of that forage out there. It's a little bit cheaper. And then we're feeding them either like corn silage and hay throughout the winter. You know, for our operation, we bale about 700 and some big round bales of hay to feed the cows through the winter. And so that's kind of the other thing that we do during the summer that actually takes a lot of time. I kind of forgot about that is the baling of hay. And so we have to, obviously this grass is free for us right now, and that's what we're utilizing for these cows. But as when winter comes, we got to make sure that we have feed for them. And you know, one interesting thing that's happened in the last couple of years, and is going to happen again this year, you know, we had, I'm sure a lot of you might have heard about the wildfires down in Kansas. I think that was 2 years ago, and then the floods in Nebraska this spring. And that's really taken a lot of the hay out of the market. So hay's actually some of the highest priced stuff that it ever has been. And that's probably the thing that's kind of sometimes the challenging for the beef producer is, you know, we spend a lot of time and we get one calf per cow. And we have to make sure and take care of that and make sure they live and make sure they're healthy to be able to sell them, to be able to pay to feed the cows the next year. And so that's kind of how the whole routine works, and hopefully there's some at the end of it that we can put in our pocket, because obviously it has to be sustainable that way.
When you take them to the feedlot, the calves, can you explain what they get to eat once they get to that stage?
Yep, once they get to the feed yard, they're eating right now, but when we wean them, they're on a creep pellet and mama's milk. So once we take them there, obviously there's still a little bit of, we use a little bit of that creep pellet, but then they eat mainly corn and some either like dried distillers grains or gluten, and a protein. And that protein is just protein like you and I eat. They got to have that additional protein to help them grow. And so we'll slowly get them up off of the creep pellets onto more a corn protein type diet, and then they'll also have hay in front of them. And they'll be in that feed yard for usually just on average maybe 6 months, 5 to 6 months, well, I should say 6 to 7 months probably, until they're of a market weight that will then sell them for meat production.
And what's a good average market weight?
That kind of changes with what the industry wants, but right now 1350 to 1400 is kind of 1350 to 1400 pounds is kind of the market weight. And a lot of these calves are born anywhere from 70 to 90 pounds. So that's how big they are when they're born, and then we got to take care of them and raise them to that end weight. So.
All right, and as we're out here, I see that they are grazing on this grass. Can you talk about how you rotate them, or the kind of the order that you do with the different, making sure that grass doesn't get too short?
Yep, that's a great question, Morgan. So we're actually, where we're standing right now is a very small piece. It's only maybe 5 acres, and there's like I said, I think there's about 55 pair out here, and this 5 acres will last them for 3 days maybe, and they'll have this chewed down. And as you can kind of see, if you look down, there's still tall pieces, but then there's a lot of shorter stuff that they're already ate down. So this taller grass here that you can kind of see, they don't like to eat that. They want to eat this real fine stuff right down here, and they'll chew that right down to the ground, because that's the real sweet, that's a high protein, or the high nutrients grass, and that's what they really like to eat. So we'll graze it down, and you know, that's a big part of your pasture management. You know, it's just like a crop. We have to take care of these pastures, and so we graze it down, and we'll move them on to the next piece, and that's called rotational grazing. And then we'll allow this grass to grow up. So this group of cows here, since they've been out here for 3 weeks, have already been on 4 different pieces, and we kind of move them along a creek or creek pasture, I guess, and have that separated. And we kind of move them all the way down to one end and then slowly move them back and rotationally graze that way. There is some other intense grazing type operations to where they might have an area that's padlocked, and if they have a square area, it might be divided into 5 or 8 different sections with a center section, and they bring them all into that. And some of those intense grazing types operations, they're moving them every day to a new piece. And so obviously that's not what we're doing here. We're utilizing, like what I'd like to say is because we are a row crop operation too, a lot of this ground that we're grazing, it cannot be farmed. It's creek pastures. It's not high quality type ground. That stuff works out great for us when it comes into cow-calf production. And so that's why you see a lot of people that might have, they might be in row crop, they might grow corn or soybeans, they might have 20 or 30 cows, something to utilize that ground that can't be farmed. One of the disadvantages of this type of pasture is we're always dealing with the cricks and floodings, and that can affect us quite a bit. So you probably can't see, but we don't have really any good fence. We use all electric wire, and what that is just a single metal wire that's on insulators, and it sends a short electric pulse through it, and it's not going to hurt them. I can touch it and it's going to, ow, it's going to scare me more than hurt, but it really it scares the cows. And so one electric wire will really keep them in. That way, if water gets too high or something happens and it washes it out, it's a lot easier to put back up. Just because we run so many miles of fence, we can't afford to have really nice fence all through it. So you'll see a lot of that. You might be driving along a road somewhere and say, hey, there's no fence there. I can't see how those cows are staying in. And that's really, there's probably just one electric wire or a couple electric wires, and it might be hard to see from the road or from the wherever you're looking at it. But that electric wire, as long as that thing stays hot and it doesn't short out, the calves learn to respect it real quick. And like I said, it's not anything where it electrocutes them. It just sends a little shock to them and it scares them. So it's.
What's some of your biggest challenges with having the cows and having the calves here? Some maybe the things that you try to watch for as they get close to calving, or some different challenges you face? Yeah, so
it seems like every year there's different challenges. A lot of it can be health driven. We ran into a scenario we've been dealing with over a couple of years. I think we finally figured it out. We actually worked with some vets at Iowa State University and did some live liver biopsies where they went in with a little machine on the side of the cow to snip a piece of their liver, and they could analyze that liver. But essentially what we figured out is there was a molecule in the soil that was causing, it's called molybdenum, and it was tying the copper and the selenium in their body. And so that copper wasn't, what they were eating wasn't getting into the cows. And so we had some calves die. We had some cows that weren't in good shape. They were really off colored. They weren't healthy because if your overall mineral complex, vitamin and mineral complex isn't in line, just like a lot of people take daily vitamins, then everything else can get out of whack. And so once we really figured that out, we fed a different organic trace mineral complex, and then that solved that problem. But that was something that was ongoing. The health issues is something you always deal with. A lot of times calves, especially in a wet, muddy year like this year, they can get scours, and that's something that can be a challenge to treat, and if it's not treated, can eventually kill the calf. But probably the biggest thing when it comes to cow-calf production is Mother Nature. It's great to say, like a great sunny day, you look out here and they're nice and happy, but the reason we're out here today instead of in our calving area where I was wanting to show you and maybe how we process calves is we just got another 3/4 of an inch of rain and there's mud up to my knees in there. It's just been a heck of a year as far as mud. So I actually had a baby calf that was born yesterday, and I watched it being born, and by the time I got out there, I let the mom sit there with it for about a half an hour or so, and the calf still hadn't really got up, and I went out there and the calf was stuck in the mud, and that calf would have died if I didn't get it out of the mud, get it up to a dry area, get it cleaned off. So those are probably the biggest challenges when it comes to cow-calf, is just Mother Nature. We didn't talk about it much, but we do have to assist quite a bit when they are calving, and a lot of that depends on the genetics you're using and the overall health of the cow herd, the shape of them, I guess. But we use a special machine. It's called a jack, essentially, and it's really no different than what humans use, but we have to help assist them get that calf out of them when they're in labor, and we do that maybe 10% of the time, have to assist them one way or the other. We do C-sections on cows if the calf's not coming right. We do have quite a few calves. I think this year we had 5 sets of twins, which is a pretty high number for us. We do have calves that are coming backwards where we have to get them out quickly, because when they're coming in that shape, they actually start breathing when they're inside the mother still, and obviously they could suffocate and die. I had multiple calves this year where I had to physically help them by re-maneuvering the calf inside the mother and getting them out. So those are all things that you do. It seems like a lot of times you're doing those at 2 o'clock in the morning during a thunderstorm or it's raining. I mean, that's the biggest challenge is dealing with some of those things just with Mother Nature, and we can't designate, for the most part, we can't designate when they're going to calve. Here's an interesting fact, though, that we figured out, and this is through some research that I actually did when I was at Iowa State and working there on the beef teaching farm, is if you feed cows right at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, there's about an 80% chance that they're going to calve during daylight hours. And that has to do with just when their gut is full and the rumen's working. So a lot of times if we feed at 4, we'll have calves usually between 6 and 8 maybe. And then a lot of times they start up around 5 in the morning and calve all throughout the day. And so that's really helped us since we started doing that. To essentially, you're putting the cows on a routine, and then you have more calves during daylight hours, and things can be a lot easier. But we do work with the vets are out here a decent amount of time. I mean, you always got the vet's number in your phone on speed dial, just when the scenarios where you can't get them yourself. It is just because you've got let's say you've got a $1,200 cow or $1,400 cow, and she's having a baby, and if you can get that baby out live, that's $300 to $500 depending on the year. And that's our goal. If we don't get a live baby out of her, then we got to pay another $400 a year to feed her, and she's not gaining us anything back. And so that's really where the economics of it come. And probably the most challenging part when in the cow-calf is, you can be going along great and calving's going really well, and then all of a sudden you hit a bad streak and you lose 4 or 5 calves in a row for odd reasons. You don't know why. Well, just lost decent amount of money, and you got to feed those cows for another year for free. So that's because you get one shot a year from the calving aspect, and so that's what you learn to deal with. And some days you come home frustrated, and some days you come home during calving, and we'll have, I think usually our biggest is anywhere from 8 to 12 calves a day, and so you're really running around trying to make sure they're all eating and doing what they need to. So
have a second grade classroom on right now, and they are wanting to know they missed the beginning, what kind of cows you have, do you name them, and also what kind of grass do you feed the cows?
So we have Simmental Angus beef cows. So there's beef cows and there's dairy cows. Beef cows are raised for meat production. Dairy cows are obviously for you milk every day for the cheese and milk. These beef cows that you see behind us are a combination of 2 different breeds. What is probably the most popular in the Midwest is Simmental and Angus. And we do name some of them. My family actually shows cattle, so I grew up exhibiting cattle at shows, and so we have a lot of pets around. And the ones that are pets, We end up naming them. Not all of them have names, but you can see they all have ear tags out there. And that ear tag is just an earring, and it's got the calf's number on it or the cow's number on it. And if you could see like this, I don't know if you can get close enough, but for example, I think this one right here is 110, and that cow was born in 2011. And that's how we keep track of her on our records and everything else, is that she's cow number 110. So that's kind of like her name. But then the nice ones are the ones we really like. Some of them get special names. But then you can see the calves also, when it's born, it's the same ear tag, and it says 110. So when we're working with them, or if we got one that's sick or missing, we can designate and make sure that they're paired up. As far as the grass they eat, it's really just it's what naturally grows in Iowa, I guess is the best way to put it. There's several different types of grass in there, from brome grass, orchard grass. I'm not a grass expert, but this is not planted. This is just what's naturally growing here. This was
Do you feed any alfalfa hay, and can you talk about like the difference between maybe alfalfa and this type of grass?
Yep. So we do feed a little bit of alfalfa, but not much. Alfalfa is a legume, so it's a lot higher in protein than a typical grass. So some people, if they're going to actually take a field and seed it down to something, which they're actually going to go out there and plant something in there, a lot of times it's a alfalfa or alfalfa with a little bit of grass mixed in, just because that's a higher value. So you want to get the most you can out of that when you seed it down. So alfalfa is a great product. Like I said, there's a lot of people that feed, that's all they feed is alfalfa. But we bale a lot of our waterways, or the areas in between. You know, if you're looking at a row crop field, you'll see these grass strips going down where the water runs. So we go in there and bale all that. And so we use just a lot of, not as much of an alfalfa mix in there, because it's better for those waterways. So that's what we feed our cows. So.
Do you use a bull, or do you have a bull on the farm?
Yes. So usually you're turning one bull out with around 20 cows. And that bull's going to service those cows, and throughout the summertime or when they're out on the pasture. We do not have the bulls out here yet because we don't want to start calving. If we let them out now, they'd be calving a little bit sooner than what we want. The gestational period on a cow is 9 months, so you just kind of backdate that and figure out, okay, I want to start calving on March 15th. I need to turn the bulls out in the pasture at this time. Right now, we currently own 8 bulls, and so those 8 bulls, we match them up depending on the pasture size and the age of the bull and those types of things, and then kick them out, and then we usually pull the bulls back out of the pasture around when we wean the calves in October, and then those bulls get to live in a bachelor pad for the winter. So.
Okay, and you also do corn and soybeans. Can you talk about maybe what's your favorite parts of the job, and do you like corn and soybeans, or do you like the cattle better? And
I think it depends on the day. Days like today, before Morgan got here, I was knee-high in mud trying to move cows around and fell down in the mud, and I don't really enjoy those days very much. But I always say the cow-calf animal production, whatever it might be, whether it's lambs, cattle, dairy, swine industry, it keeps you grounded, I guess, in agriculture. There's a lot of ups and downs when you have animal agriculture, because you're dealing so much with human life. I mean, not human life, but human nature, and it makes you appreciate things differently, I guess. And so that's why I kind of like having the cows around. The row crop is obviously a huge part of our business. I usually say that it all depends on your operation and things of that, but I'd say for 150 cows, it's not quite one guy's full-time job. I mean, maybe 3/4 of one guy's full-time job. And so on our operation, there's actually we have 3 of us owners and 2 employees, so that grain operation is what keeps everything else going. Obviously, that's where your biggest dollars are spent. But the cow-calf allows us to utilize this ground that we couldn't farm, and allows us to keep grounded in agriculture, I guess best way to put it. A lot of people ask me, you got the crops out, what do you do all winter, or what do you do all spring, until you can start planting? Well, we're busy year round with the cows. There's always something to do, so it helps spread your labor out that way. But you really got to have a passion for it, because it can be very frustrating. When you spend so much time working with cows, run them through the chute, vaccinate them, and then you go out and you find a cow that just calved and the calf's dead for no reason, and you just, you feel really bad about it. So I mean, it takes a lot of emotion, and you got to really love it, I guess.
And Miss Shauna's class is asking, how big does a cow have to be when separated from its mom?
So they're usually about 600 pounds. And that would be in October usually. So they're born middle of March, and around the 1st of October, then we'll separate them from their mom and put them in a feed yard. And then those cows will live together over the winter as they're raising another calf inside of them until they calve again in March. The cows will actually get pregnant here in another month, and they'll be pregnant the whole time they're nursing a calf.
Do you want to ask them if they have any other questions?
Yeah, do you guys have any other questions at all? Glad to answer anything.
While we're waiting, do you want to talk a little bit about your background, and so we can see if they have any other questions?
Yep. So my background, actually, I grew up in agriculture, I guess. My mom and dad both had off-farm jobs, so it wasn't a large operation, but I grew up around cattle. Always had the passion for cattle, whether it be showing them or raising baby calves when I was a little kid. And so I continued that passion at Iowa State, where I got a 4-year degree in agriculture and animal science. And from there, I actually continued on to Kansas State, where I got my master's degree in swine nutrition. And I worked for a large company doing nutrition work across the Midwest for a number of years, and then had the opportunity and came back to farm full time. And so I've always been in beef production, and always been very passionate about agriculture. And that's the one thing I love about doing these things is there's so many job opportunities in agriculture. Whatever your Rita, or whatever you're most interested in, whether it be technology or the biotechnology when it comes to being a veterinarian, or all those different areas, or the business aspect of it. Agriculture is very diverse, and there's a lot of opportunities. And to be honest with you, there's not a lot of people going into it, and that creates when we have agriculture is huge for the U.S., huge for the Midwest, and there's a lot of opportunities there with not a lot of people going into it. So it's a very competitive market. So I always encourage people to at least take a look at it, even if you've never been around it. Doesn't mean that you can't be involved with it one way or the other. So
we have a question. How do you move cows from one pasture to another?
It's a great question. So when they're born, we use I could have had it out here, but it's a little carrier that goes on the back of a four-wheeler, and I can physically pick the calf up and set him in that carrier, and the calf, his legs are kind of dangling down. It's a little harness deal, so the cow, then wherever I drive with that four-wheeler, the cow's going to follow her baby. That's how we do it when they're just a couple days old. But after they get more than a couple days old, they're pretty hard to catch. So like this group here, we'll move them all in a group, and then we have to put them into a holding area, and then we have to load them back up on a trailer.
Do you have any sayings? Like on our farm, we say "come boss."
Oh yeah. I don't know why it's always "come boss." I don't know. Nobody knows really where that came from, but that's the saying, and it's there's two cows that are kind of fighting, playing around right now, but we also try to get them trained to grain. So if I get a bucket of grain, we know which cows will walk right up to me and get that grain. And once you kind of get one cow following, if I had the bucket here, I could call them and I might get some of them follow me, and they just follow me right where I needed to go. Now then, you always have the 10% of them that are stubborn and laying back there, that within those we kind of round up with a four-wheeler and move and chase that way. So they're pretty respectful. It's the cool thing about cows, or any animal, doesn't matter what production you're in, they know me. They know, I could walk right out here and kind of walk amongst them. Now, if Morgan walked out there, they'd probably get a little bit more scared or spooked and might try to move around or make sure they know where their calf is and all those things. But, you know, they know me. Cows can actually be really mean when they first calve and you pick up their baby. So you have to be very careful. It's actually pretty dangerous. But if a cow is really mean and won't let me get to her baby to help it, then we usually end up selling them. It's just too risky. We've had a neighbor right down the road just got killed. It's been probably 10 years ago now. Because a cow knocked him down and killed him. You know, there's a lot of risk associated with it. So it's not anything to where if we're videotaping and I walked up and grabbed a calf, you know, they know me, I know the cow, I can know which ones I can do that with. But if you've never been around them and you tried doing that, you very well could get run over by a cow. So it is kind of risky that way, but it is fun because all these cows have different personalities and you kind of get to know them a little bit, and usually we'll have a cow around for, hopefully if she does a good job, she'll be around for 10 to 12 years. Probably the average is around 6 to 7 is how long they're around and in production. But all of our cows we actually raise ourselves, so a lot of these cows that you see here I help calve them and raise them ever since they're a baby. And so that's kind of cool because they, like I said, they get to know you and you know them quite a bit. So
we have a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Has one ever escaped, and do you live here on this farm?
I live right down the road from this farm, and I actually have some cows on where we live too. We have pasture that's spread out 20 miles around here, so all of our cows aren't at just this one facility. Have they ever escaped? Yeah, all the time. We had a bull out this morning. It's funny because you can go 3 weeks or a month and everybody's content and nobody's causing any issues, and then you have a streak where I don't know if it's weather related or what, and it never fails. Whenever we're on vacation or somewhere out of town, I'm getting a call that the cows are out. It's just inevitable. And but they're pretty. They respect the four-wheeler quite a bit. So we kind of use that as modern-day horses. My boy and my wife actually ride a lot of horses, and my boy ropes calves some. And he's always wanting to come out here and ride the horses around. And if we need to help rounding them up, kind of like they do out west. The interesting thing is a lot of these cows have never really seen a horse. So that might not work the best, but they know a four-wheeler and they respect a four-wheeler just like they use horses out west. So that's kind of what we use to round them up, whether we're moving them or if they get out or get in the neighbor's garden or you name it. I actually had a group of cows when I had some cattle myself when I was 14 outside Cedar Rapids, and they actually got out and they were out for almost 2.5 weeks, and the helicopters were out trying to find them because they were right along the interstate, and it was a bad ordeal. But we got every one of them back, besides ruining a bunch of yards and some gardens. Nobody got hurt. So yeah, I've got a lot of experience with that.
All right, I think that was all the questions. So if you have anything else you want to say, you can go ahead, and then I'll take the headset from you. All right. Hello, and welcome back to turning the camera around, I guess. Thank you for joining us and listening to what Tim has to say about his beef farm. Hopefully you learned a little bit today about what it's like to raise beef cattle and to have the calves here on the farm and how you care for them. So if you do have any other questions, you can comment below and I can answer those later just by messaging you back. And then we will have a link for this if you do want to watch it again or if you want to watch it at a later time. And if you would share it too, that would be excellent. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Tim, for letting us come to your farm today.
And if anybody has any further questions and ever wants to talk with me, Morgan can put you in touch. I'm more than happy to have people out too, so I always extend that offer.
Okay, and Tim just said if you do have any other questions for him, I can give you his contact information. If you ever do want to chat a little bit more about the beef farm, or if you ever even want to come out and visit, that's possibly an option as well. So if you do have an interest in that, please let me know. My email is mhibbs@ifbf.org, and thank you for joining us today. Bye.